What is up, Steeler Nation? Welcome back to another episode of State of the Steelers. And today we're going to be talking about, well, is no news really good news? And then we're going to go into what my thoughts on the Steelers right now, where they should go in the draft. Should they trade up? Should they trade down? Biggest position of need? What's going on with TJ Watt and so much more. So like, share, comment, subscribe. Well, the whole 9 yards. But without further ado, let's get into it. So first and foremost, there's not really much news at all, or any news at all on the forefront here when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. I think the last thing that had occurred was he spent 6 hours with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was last weekend. It was an unexpected visit, so he kind of showed up on his own, from what I understand, and the Steelers stopped all what they were doing. They were supposed to be going to the Michigan Pro Day, where there's some defensive linemen who I think are pretty up there in this far as position of need, and we're going to be going over that a little bit later on in the show. But stops the presses. Steelers stop what they're doing. They all stay behind just to talk to him, get a little bit of a test drive, so to speak. That's the title of the last week's show. And there's been no news since then, none whatsoever. Adam Schefter, he's getting kind of tired of the Aaron Rodgers saga. He spoke last week something to the effect about who you're going to sign with. Do you want to sign or do you not want to sign? Now, I think there's something there still. I think he was the lose my number guy that Aaron Rodgers had some sort of dispute with not too long ago. And so there could be something there as far as some hostility there between Schefter and Rodgers. But there comes a point where you're like, hey, are you going to play or are you not? Adam Schefter kind of alluded that there's the possibility that Aaron Rodgers could still retire. Now, are the Steelers going to lose Aaron Rodgers to retirement? The other possibility, and I think it's weird because they keep creeping on in, and it's the Minnesota Vikings. They're out, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. First and foremost, I thought it was some sort of joke, right? Just because of Brett Favre, his trajectory and his, what happened at the end of his career. He went from Green Bay to the Jets, and then the Jets to the Vikings. And then all of a sudden the Vikings start popping up as a possibility for Aaron. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, it's gotta be just people trying to connect dots here, trying to see history repeat itself. But it does kind of seem like there could be some smoke to that. The Minnesota Vikings, I mean, they got JJ McCartney. He's a young guy, a rookie, not necessarily a rookie quarterback, but basically a rookie quarterback. He didn't play it down last year. He was out, fairly soon or fairly quickly after being acquired by the Minnesota Vikings. And maybe perhaps Minnesota Vikings aren't too quick to throw him the keys right away. They did have Sam Darnold. They let him go. Danny Jones was behind him, and they let him go as well. Or was that the team that picked him up? I digress. I don't remember. Anyways, let's just forget about the whole Danny Jones thing. On second thought, I was right. Daniel Jones is not there. He's with the Colts. He was there. So they had options there. The Minnesota Vikings, and I think they chose JJ McCartney over those. But it seems like, the conversation is, Aaron, wait a little bit. And this is the Vikings talking. Aaron, wait a little bit. We want to see JJ throw the ball a little bit and see what he can do with everybody here. They really hadn't had an opportunity to see him play or anything like that. So they want to see him with the weapons they have and what they can do as far as scheme wise. But they're not going to take, obviously, a lot of time, but they want to see. And if it's not that great, maybe perhaps they'll bring Aaron Rodgers in. Now, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who last season didn't participate in training camp and took off. So maybe perhaps he's seeing this year as he's already done it, been there, done it kind of guy. Training camps, understand it's a new team, etc. But maybe perhaps that's a motivation of his to, like, all right, I can hold out a little bit. I don't have to go to Latrobe, for instance, or somewhere else for training camp and still find himself in a starting position or a starting role. There also could be the possibility that somebody gets injured, you know. But if he's doing that, why would he do that? Why wait on that and just not sign with the Steelers if the Steelers are having a position that is open? Well, for a couple of reasons. One could be the length and term of which, the Steelers are wanting him to sign, whether it's, they're offering him a 1 year deal and he wants a 2 year deal, or if they're offering him a 2 year deal and he wants a 1 year deal, one or the other, right? Um, there could be something there that he doesn't like, or a lot of people were talking that maybe perhaps he just doesn't like what the offensive scheme is. That was one of the reasons why he wanted to visit Pittsburgh, was to see if they can exist and coexist together. Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, and Aaron Rodgers, with their probably very stubborn means of wanting to do things. And so, is it possible that's what he's, he sees the offense there in Minnesota and telling himself, hey, this offense over here has it going on. I mean, he's got some key players. He's got Jefferson, Addison. He's got a good running game, good offensive line. The defense is stout over there. It's a team that is kind of one position away, kind of somewhat similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have a little bit more holes, but not. I think those holes can be filled within this draft fairly quickly. But I just think that the quarterback position for the Steelers is a huge one. But it's also the only position I think that the Minnesota Vikings are looking at right now and saying that they really need an answer for. And the Steelers have a few more. And so maybe that's what's kind of preventing him. But it just kind of seems like, well, Russell Wilson to the Steelers, where he was Russ was the last option. Are the Pittsburgh Steelers the last option for Aaron Rodgers for a similar reason? Confidence in what they'll do for you. The Steelers are probably not very confident in what Russ was going to be able to bring this year. So they didn't offer him anything, from what I understand. But good for Russ, I think, looking back at Russ's time, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was 1 year. He came in, he got hurt pushing the sled, which was a ridiculous thing for me, to have a quarterback doing early in training camp, first day of training camp. It was odd, but there was a lot of questionable things that were going on, I think, when it comes to the strength and conditioning because of the results. There was a lot of soft tissue issues last year. Russell Wilson started it off with the calf. And, once he got into the game, I thought he played fairly well. He jumps up, the Steelers jump up to a 10-3 start. That game against Cincinnati where he put up monster yards and it just looked like the trajectory was going in the right direction. And then it just kind of fell flat on its face to the point where the Steelers were like, hey, this isn't where we want to be at. Now, I think there's a couple of reasons to it. I think they have their eye on a future quarterback. I think they were thinking to themselves, all right, we'll give Russ the opportunity. He's 36, 37 years old at the time when they signed him. He's probably got a couple of years left in him. But no, I mean, and like I said, I think they got their eye on the prize. I think they're targeting next year's draft, maybe. But Russ, he signs with the New York Giants. He's out there at a basketball game throwing a football into the stands. He's doing his thing, being the politic that he is. And, good for him, man. I have nothing negative to say about Russ. I thought he did. I thought he represented himself well as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I thought he at least portrayed himself as a guy who bought in, was all in. There wasn't a question mark, about where he was as far as was he all in or not. And right now we have a lot of question marks when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and that specific question. So I want to thank Russ for his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was an enjoying year to catch, and I hope him nothing but the best. I hope he beats the Cowboys twice a year. I I hope he does well. I hope he does well, unless he needs the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about position of need. Should the Steelers trade up? Should they stay where they're at? And so much more. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to let you guys or remind you guys of our website, stillcurrentnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out once you're done, listening to this conversation. Multiple articles with conversations attached to it. Get in the comment section, be a part of the conversation. We want to know what you're thinking when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You won't be disappointed. But all right, let's get back into it. The Steelers have set up a top quarterback or top visit with a top quarterback prospect. Sorry about that. I'm all over the place. Jackson Dart. So he's planning on meeting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have met with Quinn Ewers, I think Will Howard, and a couple of other guys. But Jackson Dart is a guy that's been rising up quickly on the draft board. Some say that he may be there at 21. Some say the Steelers may need to jump up to get him. Now, I know that the quarterback position is the biggest position of need right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have Skylar Thompson on a futures contract, so he's not really on a current contract. So in reality, we're deja vu from a couple of years ago where the Steelers only have Mason Rudolph on a real contract for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This time around, though, they're not giving any false hope, thinking that maybe perhaps he's going to be the potential starter. They have already labeled him the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I do think that there's an opportunity for him to start, and that's if Aaron Rodgers decides that he does not want to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers end up going in the route of drafting a rookie. Now, I'm not a fan of that route, of that group. Now, I would be more for, the Steelers signing Aaron Rodgers, keeping Mason Rudolph, and then drafting a quarterback much later, maybe in day 3 of the draft, not necessarily a day 1 or day 2 pick. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss is a college, I think, that has been a little gimmicky at some points. It's not really the offense there hasn't been really the pro-ready offense that you've seen some of these other collegiate schools or programs. And, I think he has the moxie. I think he has, some of the intangibles. But, to go for a first-round pick now, that kind of gives up the thought of getting a first-round pick next season at the quarterback position, where I think it's a stronger draft class. Now, I do think that if there's the possibility of one of the top quarterbacks dropping, maybe perhaps you pull the trigger if it's Cam Ward or Deion Sanders. And believe it or not, I don't know how crazy this is, but I did a mock draft simulator off of PFF, and Cam Ward dropped all the way down 21. I have no idea why. I ended up getting him and then running back Trayvon Henderson out of Ohio, and in the 3rd round, which was insane. I don't think that's going to be able. That would be crazy if it fell that way. I think I must have done something with the settings. Well, anyways, Shedeur Sanders, I think, is probably the quarterback there that could fall a little bit or all the way down to 21, maybe just fall enough that the Steelers can go up there and grab, that I think would be worthy of that first round pick and or of moving up and down. But in reality, I think there's a lot better options next season. The Steelers have continued to make moves. They recently just signed a guard who was released from the Patriots. That way it doesn't affect their compensation or compensatory formula or picks. Wilson signing with the Giants, potentially being a starter, that also adds to the comp formula. So I don't think the Steelers want to, mess with that. So the reason being is I think they're going to try to position themselves for for a quarterback in next year's draft, and that's going to be right in front of the fans. The draft is in Pittsburgh, et cetera, et cetera. I'm probably going to be there, so if anybody's going, we'll see you there. But I just don't. I don't mind a kid like Jackson Dart, but man, I don't think he's going to be there in the third round. And even at that, I think the Steelers have other needs at that position or at that round before um, going out there and getting a quarterback. Like, for instance, I think defensive line is important. Keanu Benton, I think, is playing out of position. I think him as the nose isn't really working out to the best, right? I think he would be better suited if he was in the Cam Hayward role, Stephon Tuitt role. Bring in a guy like a Kenneth Grant who's going to play that middle, who can shore up the middle, the nose. And I think that'll do wonders for this defensive line. But I think you need to draft one of those guys in either the first or the third round. Running back is another key position. The Steelers only have Jaylen Warren and a bunch of guys who you couldn't find on a milk carton. And so, I'm just saying, like, I think they need to draft the running back in the first or third round. Now, should the Steelers trade up, trade down? If they trade up, they're going to have to lose some assets. And so that means filling those positions there are going to be a little bit more difficult. Maybe perhaps the running back position, not so much. They can wait a little while. I think it's just a few more weeks before signing any free agent doesn't affect the comp formula. And they go out there and get a J.K. Dobbins or something like that for the running back position to pair up with Jaylen Warren. I almost forgot his name. But I think more than likely you're probably going to have to trade back. Now, how far do you have to trade back to acquire a second round pick? I mean, that's the question, right? Somebody would have had to have fallen, and someone desperate would have had to have wanted to move up a few spots, because I don't think you want to drop out of the first round completely. So if you drop it back 4, 5, 6, positions, maybe perhaps you might get a second round, but it depends on how needy that other team is. But if you can get a third round pick, have 2/3, one of those second thirds, getting a quarterback in that situation, it's a little bit more comfortable. But there are some other needs still. There's the cornerback position, slot corner. Now, I think slot corner is probably a position that can be acquired in day 3 of the draft. But you have your cornerback, you have a wide receiver position that I think a lot of people are still questioning. However, though, the Steelers have a Roman Wilson who they didn't get a chance to utilize almost at all last season. So maybe perhaps they're going to use Roman Wilson as their wide receiver draft choice of this year. But I mean, you have a lot of needs there. So I think maybe going back a couple of positions, if you can come up with a third rounder or even a fourth round pick, would be probably in your best bet. I think that's probably the move right there. Unless somebody falls completely, that you're willing to bet the farm. But there's just so many positions that are open right now that need to be filled. Running back and defensive line being the two on the top there. I don't know, because let's just say the Steelers decide to go quarterback, running back, right? Kind of like my mock draft ended up doing. Well, you're leaving that defensive line with Cam Hayward. Ogunjobi's gone now too, so you have Loudermilk coming back on another year. I think he played okay against the run, towards the end of the season last year in spot duty. You have Keanu Benton. In my opinion, there's some holes there. There's a hole there. There needs to be another player to transition in and out. And I think if the Steelers go out there and get one of these guys at the defensive line position early, and then maybe even double up in the, day 3 or so, I think that's probably going to be the move. Even though they do have a guy like Logan Lee, for instance, who was drafted last year as well, who didn't participate. So, the Steelers do have some players there. And lastly, the thing I wanted to talk about is when are we going to see TJ Watt get extended? Right. I think it's actually going to happen. I don't know if the Steelers are going to pay him the amount of money that, um, like the Myles Garrett, but I think they're going to get up there and they're going to get close. It is what it is. The market is where the market's at. You sign him now, you sign him early. They should have signed him earlier. They would have saved themselves quite a bit of money. But I think that's what, most people need to look at when it comes to the market is regardless if you sign him today or tomorrow. Um, Obviously, yesterday would have been a better deal than today or tomorrow. But even if you sign tomorrow, eventually tomorrow turns into today, and the cap will increase, and that deal will also look like a steal within a couple of years. And so, yeah, you can save yourself some money now and do it, but I think they're probably just holding off to see what happens with Rodgers, to be honest with you. I think they're waiting to see what's going on there. They have quite a bit of money open. It probably means that they're not going to offer him more than 1 year because everything's going to be upfront and guaranteed. So they can't massage, the cap the way they probably want to. Well, I guess they can. They can add a void year or something like that. But you know, I don't know. Maybe they should do it already. I think they should. I think TJ has quite a bit of time left in the tank. He was playing like a monster last year up until the end. I know that my compadre Shannon White on The Hangover says that he doesn't have a statistical stat in majority of playoff games that he's participated in. And although that is true, in majority of those games, the offense has been hindered by one way or another. Whether it be injuries on the offensive side. I mean, there was the 1 year that Shazier was out on the defensive side, but offense has always had some sort of injury. And then as of recent, down the stretch, the offense hasn't been putting up their end of the bargain. It's been 3-and-out city. A bunch of time of possession has been really low, and the defense has been on the field fatigued and tired, and it's taken its toll. And I think that if the Steelers' offense can do as they need or as advertised, I think that maybe perhaps the defense wouldn't be as fatigued and tired. And you have that rotation with a Nick Herbig. I think you can keep him fresh, and I think you can keep him out there raising havoc. But the offense has to do their part. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have him out there all the time and then not expect him to get tired, fatigued, and injured. And so, like I said, last season, he was getting robbed by the referees when it came to his statistics. He should have had, another strip sack, if not more than that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he was having a monster year last year, just didn't, pan out the way the Steelers wanted to down the end. But so no news is new news. Well, no news is good news, I guess. The Steelers haven't heard anything. I think we'll probably hear something by next week. I wouldn't be surprised by like Monday or Tuesday we have something, if not tomorrow. But I think by the end of next week, we'll probably finally hear something when it comes to Aaron Rodgers one way or another. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think there's a handshake agreement already been made. And, for whatever reason, they're waiting on something. Maybe it's not even Rodgers. Maybe it's Mike Tomlin who's like, hey, you can announce it here or there or whatever. I don't know. Probably not. I don't think Mike Tomlin's ever done that. But yeah, I'm in for it. It's gonna be one roller coaster of a ride if he joins. And I think it's gonna be some crazy ups and some crazy downs. But overall, I think it's gonna be a whichever way the Steelers go, I'm gonna be there, rooting and supporting. Well, please hit that like button, subscribe, 5-star, share, the whole 9 yards, whatever you guys need to do. I appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you on Monday on The Hangover with Shannon White. Peace.